So now you're here again, knocking at my door. A little too late for, I'm sorry for. The lights went out cause you kept cutting the cord, and I started to fade into your gray. See, I finally opened up my eyes, and I saw me coming back to life. That I'd be better without you inside. It's time to be someone I wanna recognize. The future starts right now. I made a reservation, but you never came, so I'm checking out. The fire you stole away, I know one day we'll come back around. The future is now. I waited for you in the passenger seat. There's only so far I can ride in your dreams. While you were chasing everything else but me, I'm starting to break out from your gray. See, I finally opened up my eyes, and I saw me coming back to life. That I'd be better without you inside. It's time to be someone I wanna recognize. The future starts right now. I made a reservation, but you never came, so I'm checking out. The fire you stole away, I know one day we'll come back around. The future is now. Down, cause the future is now. Not backing down, cause the future is now. So now you're here again, knocking at my door. A little too late for, I'm sorry for. The lights went out cause you kept cutting the cord. And I started to fade into your gray. See, I finally opened up my eyes, and I saw me coming back to life. That I'd be better without you inside. It's time to be someone I wanna recognize. The future starts right now. I made a reservation, but you never came, so I'm checking out. The fire you stole away, I know one day we'll come back around. The future is now. The future is now. The future is now. I waited for you in the passenger seat. There's only so far I can ride in your dreams. While you were chasing everything else but me, I'm starting to break out from the gray. See, I finally opened up my eyes, and I saw me coming back to life. That I'd be better without you inside. It's time to be someone I wanna recognize. The future starts right now. I made a reservation, but you never came, so I'm checking out. The fire you stole away, I know one day we'll come back around. The future is now. The future is now. I'm not backing down, cause the future is now. Not backing down, cause the future is now. The future starts right now. I made a reservation, but you never came, so I'm checking out. The fire you stole away, I know one day we'll come back around. The future is now. The future is now. The future is now. So now you're here again, knocking at my door. A little too late for, I'm sorry for. The lights went out cause you kept cutting the cord. And I started to fade into your gray. See, I finally opened up my eyes, and I saw me coming back to life. That I'd be better without you inside. It's time to be someone I wanna recognize. The future starts right now. I made a reservation, but you never came, so I'm checking out. The fire you stole away, I know one day we'll come back around. The future is now. The future is now. The future is now. I waited for you in the passenger seat. There's only so far I can ride in your dreams. While you were chasing everything else but me, I'm starting to break out from your gray. See, I finally opened up my eyes, and I saw me coming back to life. That I'd be better without you inside. It's time to be someone I want. 'Cause the future is now, not backing down. 'Cause the future is now. The future starts right now. I made a reservation, but you never came, so I'm checking out. The fire you stole away, I know one day we'll come back around. The future is now.
Geothermal energy has been called the sleeping giant. Today, it accounts for less than 2% of our total energy consumption, and yet, unlike solar and wind, it can stay on around the clock. Unlike water, heat can be found everywhere on the planet. We just need to harness its potential. And to do that, we need to fuel this growing trend and push for the breakthroughs we need most. That's why we are here today. What trends are most affecting geothermal energy? Today, we will look at it from all different angles. The ones developers need to know about to build future-proof projects, the ones investors should watch, and the ones most talked about in the industry. So welcome to the second virtual seminar, The Earth is Power, Let's Switch It On. My name is Kristina Hagström-Milewska, and I will be your host today. Trends are something that we at Baseload monitor closely, but it is also the topic that you asked us to cover next. So we made sure to pull out all the stops to bring you a great lineup of speakers on the topic. Today we are going to take you on a journey, starting first with a guided tour on how we at Baseload analyze trends, with our very own COO, Pernilla Wihlborg. Then we're going to mix it up with a game of Overrated, Underrated, where our CTO, Manon Stöver, and the founder of Energy Disruptors, Graeme will engage you in a fun and fast-paced review of the current technologies. After that, I'm happy to introduce you to the CEO of Eavor, John Redfern, and let him tell you the story behind their trending technology and how you get to go into a magazine as Rolling Stones. After that, billionaire investor, entrepreneur and possibilist, Mr. Vinod Khosla will share his thoughts on the breakthroughs we need to see. Only to return for a chat with the most well-known one of the most well-known faces in the geothermal sector, Alexander Richter, to talk about how to get us all together and make sure that geothermal continues to gain momentum, so that this trend that we are in becomes the new renewable baseload, not to just be a trend, but to be a part of the future that we want to create. the future we all know we can create. That's why we invited you to join us in this live seminar today to discuss, learn, and collaborate together. Only together we can cut our dependence on fossil fuels and switch on the Earth's power. Are you ready for just over an hour of knowledge and inspiration? To make sure that you have a little extra glow on this event, we have asked for help from our fabulous house band, Jim Pat Garrett Show. Woo! I like that, guys. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you.
Please, let me introduce the brothers Johan and Patrik Stenström that will guide you through the day, and they will make sure that you are entertained during the break that we will have in about an hour. And also, they will help me to introduce all the speakers. And on that note, now it's time. Without further ado, let's kick things off. Our first speaker is Baseload Capital's own COO, a trend maker in her own right. She has been with Baseload from the start, and actually it was her idea to collaborate with onsen owners in Japan. She's our chief strategist and constantly inspires us to work for a planet in balance. So on the topic of why trends matter, please help me welcome up on stage Pernilla Wihlborg.
Let me start with one of my favorite early learnings from business school. Most of you probably know the story of Kodak, of how an engineer in their R&D department came to the management in 1970 with a prototype for a digital camera, and he was laughed out of the room. Then, in 1981, their head of business intelligence informed the management that digital photography had the potential to replace the film business within 10 years. What did they do? They chose to stick with the film business. We all know what happened to Kodak and printed photos, but the question is, would we really have acted differently if we'd been in their shoes? Many examples since then indicate that we tend to misjudge the effect of big trends crossing our path. Then we have the cases where the opposite is true. Some trends are not neglected. Like when Mark Zuckerberg test flew a giant drone made of carbon fiber with a wingspan larger than a Boeing 737, with the goal of being able to provide internet to everyone on the planet. According to Facebook, the Aquila effort was not about world domination. It was about democratizing access to education and research. Even though the drone project crashed and Facebook abandoned the project, we see great future potential in this field. Increasing the access to internet globally is a trend that's here to stay. Full global reach has not yet been achieved, but even as I speak, Elon Musk is hard at work using 4,000 satellites to achieve the same result. When you hear of a new trend, how do you know if it's just a passing fad or if it's got staying power? Sometimes a trend stays dormant until it's combined with a new trend many years later. And how do you identify business opportunities from trends? In my family, we play Pokemon Go. I wasn't aware at the time, but back in 1995, Pokemon was the first three-dimensional online role-playing game, engaging players in the act of storytelling rather than just setting players down on a prescribed obstacle course. 13 years later, Apple launched the iPhone, opening up a whole new possibilities for data usage on the fly. In parallel for the last 20 years, the Western world has been struggling more and more with obesity due to less activity. Children's lack of movement is a serious negative trend. Then in 2016, Niantic released Pokemon Go, combining the interactive game with movement and inciting millions of people to walk, run, and even jump. And this is perhaps the thing that I find most interesting about trends, connecting the dots. When you can identify 2 or more trends with high impact, good or bad, and then connect them to create a solution or an idea that gives birth to an entirely new business opportunity. This is the foundation on which Baseload Capital was founded. First, we knew that energy consumption was increasing around the world and would continue to do so. In the energy sector, everyone was talking about how power production was too centralized, and that would be a challenge to upgrade transmission lines to meet the widespread growing demand. This was creating a general interest in distributed power production. In parallel, we saw how new geothermal technologies were opening up possibilities with medium to low temperature heat that previously had not made sense financially. But it wasn't until we visited Iceland that these trends came together in an opportunity. Local communities there have ambitious growth targets that require electricity. But the majority of Iceland's power is produced around Reykjavik. So we saw the key role that distributed geothermal power production could play by providing affordable local power based on low temperature heat. That's when we started to engage in this fairly undeveloped market with huge potential. Connecting trends is effective, and so is identifying trends that can have a big impact. A trend creates momentum when many people are affected, either positively or negatively. A widespread problem or opportunity attracts more people to become involved and invested, and a large invested community increases the likelihood of a successful business opportunity. Pokemon Go got my kids to move away from their computer screens, and it gave us as a family something we could engage in together. But it's also managed to capture the imaginations of nostalgic 30-year-olds who dress up for events. And it's been a boost for small businesses like cafes and restaurants who could participate by offering people Pokestops. Sometimes the trends you could connect are not obvious. On one of my first trips to Japan, I was fortunate to visit some beautiful onsen spas in Nagano and Gifu prefectures. My guide explained to me that the younger generations more and more choose city vacations instead of onsen retreats. And this decline in business had a big impact on many onsen hotels and consequently also their surrounding communities. The central part of an onsen spa is the hot geothermal water, which can also be used for power production. So a trend shift in vacation habits opens up an opportunity within renewable energy that many communities and small businesses could benefit from. It's no coincidence that the power plants we now are envisioning don't simply serve the single purpose of power production, but can evolve to be entire ecosystems. A geothermal power plant might also provide district heating for nearby homes, or be combined with a greenhouse for year-round farming of organic crops. Such solutions don't merely benefit investors, they have a lasting impact on future generations. So understanding trends is important because that's where new ideas are born. And once the idea is born, it needs to become a reality, and that's an entirely different part of the puzzle. There's the financial aspect, of course. A new idea will not be realized in a sustainable way if it's not financially sound. But there's often much more to it than that. You need individuals and teams that are dedicated to the cause. So we need to look at what motivates people, and that differs a lot. At Baseload, we're interested in trends that open up opportunities that align with our vision and mission. We ask, will this opportunity help us bring balance to the planet? Will it help us create more resilient societies? And will it enable our baseload power companies to deliver on their mission to deploy renewable electricity for local communities? And even when the financials make sense and there is alignment with core values, there's still the aspect of devotion and drive, which some individuals simply have more of than others. And we need to identify and empower people with the resilience to turn a trend into an actual business opportunity. That's why we are having this seminar. If we as a community can come together, share insights, ideas, reflections on different trends, then solutions might be born. Even the long shot ideas are worth looking at. Considering that climate change is the biggest problem humanity has ever faced, we should leave no stone unturned. Vinod Khosla said in a speech a few years back, "I don't mind investing in something that has a 90% chance of failure if it's a transformative project, because a 10% chance of changing the world is a pretty good chance." To reach our goal of shifting the energy mix away from fossil fuels, we need to combine our efforts in known technologies and segments, as well as those that are still undiscovered or unproven. We'll need to combine wind, solar, storage together with geothermal, green hydrogen, and more. We need to evolve incrementally as well as look for disruptive new ideas, and we need to be ready to adapt and change direction when such ideas pop up. A new trend or solution to a problem doesn't automatically mean we should give up on an older one. In fact, in many cases, we should add rather than replace. This is a call for action. Let's work together to connect the dots. Thank you.
Pernilla, I said that you were an inspiring person, but I think that many more will agree with me now after listening to your speak.
Well, you're so kind.
I think I need a drum roll there, or maybe some kind of a drum. Drum. Thank you very much. That feels much better. We relax and so on. So I was, when I was listening to your speech, I was thinking about, like, you were mentioning geothermal in a couple of instances. What do you think about us as an industry? Where are we in trends? Are we good at trends?
Well, we have done a lot of things good in the past, but I think just looking at how established geothermal is and what the energy mix looks like today, I think we can do more.
And I think that to do more, there is always an argument about how fast we want the return of invest and money back. So when you are choosing between different initiatives to invest in, how do you think about them? For money fast or money in a long return?
Well, I mean, for every investor, I mean, that's going to be a big topic, right? And the returns are important. But I think we also need to look at the bigger picture here. We have a problem with climate crisis. And if an opportunity really has the potential to have a huge impact on stopping climate change, then I think it's an investment worth making. So we need to look for patient capital. It's out there, I'm sure of it. And we just need to make sure it's attracted into the geothermal industry.
Definitely, and once they are in the geothermal industry and when we are choosing which trends to go on, do you think we can decide on a specific track to move on within the geothermal? To put all our money in one trend?
No.
No,
of course not. No, we need to be flexible. I think that's the nature of the world today. We don't know what will happen. The pandemic, who knew that was going to happen? We need to always make sure that we are light on our feet and ready to move when things around us moves.
Yeah, and on that topic, I mean, the word pivot has really been a trending word in 2020, in a sense. And companies have risen and fallen down because of if they could or could not handle the word to pivot. So my question that I wanted to ask is, what is your idea for a company? What do companies need to be good at in order to handle these fast-moving changes but still keep their trustworthiness?
Well, I think that's the key thing, isn't it? Building that balance into the company culture. I don't know if I have the right answer for that, but I very much believe in that we need to build in that balance. One of the core values for Baseload is resilience, and we try to really make sure that we stay elastic so that we can sort of do both.
Can you give an example about like a company or how we do it in order to stay elastic?
Well, I mean, I don't know. It's right now we have a very strong feeling that low temperature geothermal is something that we invest in, and that's what we have chosen to go after first. But I think we will always be looking for new ideas, and if a good opportunity pops up that is aligned with our core values and our vision and mission, then we will be ready to change direction.
Good to hear. So to summarize all of this, do you have any last advice for all the people watching you now and have been listening to your speech and our conversation? What do you want them to remember?
I mean, it's don't wait too long. This is happening now, and don't think too much. Just get in and act.
Thank you very much for Pernilla for being with us. You will be with us a little bit later with discussions after the talk with Vinod Khosla.
I will.
So don't say goodbye. I'll say see you later.
See you later.
See you later. On the next person on that topic, moving on, so to speak, the next person on stage is someone whose vision is to unite the energy sector. Wait for it. Can I get a drum roll? By disrupting it. Well, he is Graeme Edge, and he is the co-founder of Energy Disruptors. Energy Disruptors is a catalyst for game-changing solutions and to the world's biggest energy challenges, basically. And they have a Unite Summit, and they bring together all the global leaders of the world to drive transformation in the energy sector. Also joining us on stage will be our own CTO, Manon Stöver. Manon has more than 10 years of experience in the geothermal industry, and she uses it very wisely to help us identify the trends that will affect us the most. So we decided to have a little bit of fun. So we wanted to engage Graeme and Manon in a game of overrated, underrated. So you can look forward to a fast-paced review of the current trends. And the host for this session is no other than our own CEO at Baseload Capital, Alexander Helling. Help me welcome Graeme Edge, Manon Stöver. Over to you, Alex.
Thank you very much, Christina, and for me as well. Very welcome, Manon and Graeme. It's a pleasure to have you on board.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be.
Thank you, Manon. So we're going to play a game of overrated and underrated, right? But Graeme, when I have you here, I need to ask a question first. So Bill Gates, he just launched his new book, How to Avoid a Climate Disaster. So what's your opinion on people like Bill Gates, Richard Branson, Vinod Khosla? How much importance do they play for, startup companies, investors in setting trends and, engaging in the energy sector?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. Obviously, they're really high-profile individuals, and I think they're attracting other investors and attention around these challenges, things like breakthrough energy measures. So I actually think it's a good.
Very good. Thank you for that, and it's good to hear it. And I think you're totally right. We need people like this to invest in order to set the trends and start to move the needle, right? But we're not there to discuss this, so we're here to play a game. So let's start. Are you guys ready?
Yes, absolutely.
Perfect. You both know the rules of the game, so I'm going to go ahead with the first question. When it comes to renewables, geothermal is one energy source that, if developed correctly, can supply the world with a renewable baseload power. At the same time, it's one of the energy sources not that many people know of and not that much investment go into. So, is geothermal underrated or overrated? Come
Who
on.
starts? Oh yeah. Sorry.
Very good.
Oh no, wrong one.
Very good. Thank you very much, guys. So, Graeme, you want to comment?
Yeah, I mean, I think that really it's an underrated source of energy. Obviously, costs are one of the big challenges. We'll get on to that in a few minutes' time, but the big challenge is scaling up and driving down.
Thank you. And Manon, do you have something to add as well?
Yeah, of course, I would like to add that one of my big wishes is, of course, that everyone will love geothermal and everyone knows geothermal and understands geothermal. Given the fact that it could be a baseload energy, it's very sustainable. We can go projects, pioneers.
Are you guys ready with the science now? All right, good. So,
Yes.
many of the challenges in geothermal comes during the exploration and drilling phase. But at the same time, the oil and gas industry are drilling more than 50,000 wells a year compared to only a couple of hundred of geothermal wells per year. So, is the involvement of the oil and gas industry to succeed in geothermal overrated or underrated? Manon? All right, so we have one correctly rated and one underrated. So let's start with you now, Manon.
Yeah, I think it fits with the geothermal underrated or overrated. I think we can, everyone could join our party. We have great goals, we have great visions. The oil and gas industry, of course, has a vast experience also in doing subsurface development work, and as a petroleum engineer by training, I'm aware that there are very likely a lot of synergies between the oil and gas and geothermal industry. So yes, I'll be happy to welcome anyone from the oil and gas industry to have conversations. By the way, a lot of people from my university, they always contacted me like, how did you get into geothermal? I want to get into geothermal too. So if anyone else has questions, please let me know.
Very good. No, and I think that, we've seen just the last year with the PEVO 2020 and other initiatives that there is a strong drive from moving from the oil and gas business into geothermal. So, Graeme, correctly rated, you want to comment?
Yeah, I think I've gone between underrated and overrated on this. So I kind of landed maybe I'm hedging a bet, so I'm correctly rated. But I'd say that the positives are that the oil and gas industry can bring more capital. It can help with kind of scaling things up. I think there's some, particularly around things like well execution and some of the subsurface aspects Manon's mentioned. I think those are positives. But I think there's some concerns and perhaps some caution around the perception of oil and gas being involved in geothermal. I think that's something that needs to be carefully considered. And I'd also add, I think that the oil and gas industry needs to match its words with actions. I think we've seen a lot of talk around geothermal at this point, but we still haven't seen necessarily the action or the major capital from oil and gas yet flowing into the sector. And I'm hoping that something's going to happen this year and into next year.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. All right, thank you. So let's move into the third question. For solar and wind, a big factor for success has been the scalability. In geothermal, most projects are considered to be single-risk projects and not seen as particularly scalable. Now, is scalability overrated or underrated? All right, up, come on, let's see. Underrated, all right, very good. So, Graeme, why is scalability underrated?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is costs. You look at the number of wells, gas compared to geothermal. You can get thousands of geothermal wells executed, you can hopefully bring down the cost substantially. I think scale is absolutely critical. And I think the way to look at geothermal is competing against other renewable energies rather than, say, oil and gas. So you've got to target those other sources from a cost perspective and be competitive against them.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree. That's also one of the opportunities we saw from Baseload Capital, right? That if you can bring scalability into geothermal, especially within the low and medium temperature segment, then you can build out power plants in a much faster way, and that's what's necessary, right? So I'm going to move on to the fourth question. We have always relied on large-scale power plants to supply electricity through an extensive grid network. With renewables, it becomes much easier to build microgrids and supply the electricity where it's needed. Is the future potential role of microgrids in the overall energy system overrated or underrated? Overrated and correctly rated. All right, so Manon, let's start with you.
Well, I think it's correctly rated because we need both. So in the bigger urban cities, we will more likely have availability to the traditional grid, or there's a higher chance that we can expand the available grid capacity. But at the same time, the beauty of geothermal is that we could also develop it locally and use the electricity or whatever heat, whatever it is, also use it on a local scale. So for that, we will need microgrids. And at the same time, microgrids are also quicker to develop.
Thank you. And Graeme, do you want to comment?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of around microgrids. I'll point to what's happening in Texas. Obviously, the power is difficult and extreme weather that's facing. I think we sometimes take for granted baseload power and how important it is. So this is why geothermal is so interesting, is to provide that kind of baseload power. Hardcore renewables, microgrids that can solve everything, and you won't need baseload power. I personally don't agree with that.
Yeah, very good. All right, so the fifth and final question. A way to speed up development in geothermal would be to utilize the hundreds of thousands of existing oil and gas wells. This is nothing new, but is it overrated or underrated to believe that this is a faster way than traditional development? Overrated. And Manon, overrated, and we can't see the other one.
Oh, let me do it like this.
Okay, thank you, Manon. So, Manon, do you want to start? You picked all the signs.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, so I think the value of information of all the oil and gas exploration that has been done is of great value. It's really there are a lot of geothermal projects that could be developed with a kickstart just because so many drillings has been done in the past for oil and gas. So that's something very positive. Next to that, we also know that there are oil and gas wells that can be utilized for geothermal, but not all of them. And we shouldn't overlook also the complication of reutilizing these oil and gas wells. It is possible, but it's not a given fact. And yes, but the value of information is wonderful, and the possibilities as well. So that's why somewhere in the middle between correctly rated and maybe overrated.
All right. Thank you, Manon. Interesting. And Graeme, what would you say?
Yeah, the only thing I'd add is I think that when you're converting or reutilizing existing infrastructure, there's big variations between the wells. So how do you actually scale that up to significant impact? I think that's my big concern around using abandoned wells. I think there's some really great, kind of niche opportunities in that space, but I would question the scalability.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your insights on all of those 5 questions. So if we move to the finale then and, skip the underrated, overrated, and I ask you if, looking into all technologies, systems and policies that we need in order to disrupt the global energy system, what is your prediction will happen in the next 5 years? And let's start with you, Manon.
Oh, okay. what is my prediction? So in you ask more for regulations or really technologies?
No, what do you see will happen in the next 5 years? What do you think will happen in the energy system? Will it be, all based on geothermal? Will it be a combination, or what will happen in the next 5 years?
But let's put it like this. What I would wish that happened in the next 5 years is that we improve to work very efficient and very smooth and in an integrated manner, and that this is maybe supported by some additional tools that we are thinking of developing to support our work processes, but also to support the knowledge that we can quickly, let's say, on a snap of a finger, come up, because we have a lot of experience with geothermal. Geothermal is maybe still young and not that big, but we have done a lot of things. So that will be my wish for future, is that for the geothermal developers and for the people who are working in geothermal, that we have the tools, we have the platforms to really be quick, apply our knowledge, apply our competences, and move quickly forward with the projects. Yes.
Thank you very much, Manon. And Graeme, what would you say?
Yeah, so specific to geothermal, I think we're going to see more oil and gas money in the space. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see a number of larger oil and gas companies buying out some of the most exciting startups in the geothermal space. Whether they'll keep them independent or kind of absorb them into the mothership, so to speak, will be interesting to see how that plays out. Some other things, I think we're going to see the cost of capital go up for oil and gas companies. I think they're in a vicious cycle where the cost of capital continues to increase. So how do they break out of that cycle? I think geothermal is one of the areas that you can see why that would be of interest to them. Other things, more broadly, I'd say I think you're going to see more scrutiny around battery supply chains. Given China's dominant position in batteries, I think that's going to be of increasing concern to certain countries in the West. And the one other thing I'd like to see is some of the big technology players start to engage in the geothermal space from a corporate PPA perspective. I think it'd be super interesting to see players like Microsoft and Amazon and others start to engage and potentially procure renewables directly from geothermal players, and that might further kick on more investment in the space.
Thank you very much, Graeme. I certainly hope that you're right, and I'm looking forward for the next 5 years then and all the development that will happen. So with that, I would like to thank you, Manon, and thank you, Graeme, for participating. And as a last remark, I think, Manon, you said it great in our last seminar, that the most powerful trends is our own creativity. Thank you very much, and over to you, Christina.
Thank you, Alex. As you mentioned, there are many trends to talk about, and on that note, we are going to take a look at yet another trend. It's called the Ever Loop. And here to tell us about it is John Redfern, the president and CEO of Eavor Technologies, an expert investor, advisor, and serial entrepreneur in data analytics, oil service, and energy tech. John has actually spent up to 13 years in China co-founding a series of startups prior to starting Eavor. He holds a degree in engineering physics from Queen's University, law degrees from McGill University, and an MBA from INSEAD in France. He has been the driving force at Eavor now for 3 years already. So please help me welcome John Redfern. Hi there, John. Welcome on. Thank you. And I see that we don't hear you right now, so I'm hoping to get a little bit of additional sound.
No, that's just that's a tradition here we have in 2020 and 2021. Always start on mute. Right? Anyways, thank you for the introduction. It's fantastic to be here. I just take exception with me being the driving force. We have a team that's absolutely amazing here, and I just try to keep up. That's my role, and not get in the way too much.
That's how a leader speaks, definitely. Listen, when we found out that everybody wanted to talk about trends, your name ever came up directly. Why do you think that's the case?
Well, hopefully that's because we're doing a good job on the branding and publicity in general. When we started, what was one of the main problems we saw in geothermal, or one of many problems? You have a situation where it's got a lot to offer, but given the history in the past, people have sort of overlooked it. Because the geothermal, we know all about it. It's been around forever. It doesn't scale. So nice little niche product, but we're not interested. So they weren't looking. So things like going on Rolling Stone and doing the Harmony video, where what does that Harmony video mean? Don't ask me. But it caught people's attention. And being able to sort of manage that, and like I say, I like to joke we're the only company to be in the Journal of Petroleum Technology and Rolling Stone in the same month, and people start noticing that. So I think that's part of it. Part of it's just that we're doing something different, and we're doing it with clarity and focus, and that helps one get ahead of the pack.
Listen, I mean, you already mentioned the topic. You guys were in Rolling Stones. That's not an easy paper to get into, in a sense. And you had a really inspiring video regarding it that we will definitely post on our social media so people can check it out. Can you tell me the story? How did you end up in Rolling Stones?
Oh, that's part of the secret sauce. But I can't give you all our secrets. But again, it's. We didn't realize it, or I didn't realize it until I came into the geothermal sector, just what a marketing challenge it was. But in our case, we had a double challenge. We had to go and convince the skeptical public that geothermal is the future, but to then say, wait, within geothermal, the future is Everloop, in our opinion. But that's the story we were progressing. So we had to sort of go through two hoops to get people where we wanted them to get, and we had to have them, think afresh about that.
What made you think, I mean, in that sense, you must have been, you said you had two loops to go through. It must have taken a lot of hard work and effort. What has made you power through all of this?
Well, I think what's helped the entire team power through is the fact that everyone in the team feels like we're doing something significant, something that can change the world. And, everyone likes to be paid as well, but it's those other more intangible benefits that really inspire people. And then if you can combine that with being able to work with a bunch of other inspiring people at the same time in the same team, then you got a winning combination. And work no longer becomes work. It becomes, it's a calling, I guess.
You were telling me when we were preparing and discussing before, you were telling me a story about that people actually thought that you guys were crazy. And I remember,
We used to joke that our original barrier to entry is everyone did think we were crazy or trying to at least do something impossible. And I could get some people on this very show to vouch for that. You got Alex Richter coming on later. He was, shall I say, skeptical for the first couple of years. We talked to him about it. And Graeme Edge, when he was just on, when he was doing his blockbuster Energy Disruptors Conference in Calgary. Forget us getting on. He'd never let us on the main stage. In fact, he had a special stage for us, literally in the basement, because we were geothermal, and Graeme will admit geothermal was not cool. So it was things like that, being relegated to the basement by Graeme, that convinced us that besides taking all the technical challenges in hand, we needed to work on the publicity.
And I think that me and the whole industry are thankful for your passion and to endure this, because I think that you've been role models for many of us.
One of the things I should give a shout out for is when we started in 2017, of course, Climon was already established. And then we were the ones looking enviously saying, my God, they've got Sir Richard Branson on the website. It's a cool looking website. How can we be that cool? So I hope we've joined Baseload and Climon in the illustrious ranks of cool websites.
You sure did.
So you guys inspired us.
There you go. Yeah, great minds think alike, let's say so. That's very humble of both of you and me here, but I guess that there are many companies out there that we can be inspired by. If I leave that thought and move into... sorry?
Go on, sorry. No, go on. I was saying there's one other thing that connects ourselves, Climb On, and Baseload. And that connects us. What do we have in common that a lot of other geothermal players don't have? What we have is that all of us, come from countries, whether it's Sweden or Canada, that have no geothermal background. The vast majority of the people we hired, first 30 people, maybe other than 2 overseas consultants, no one had any geothermal experience. We both came from countries where the geothermal gradient was terrible. And so all these things which at first blush you would think would be a disadvantage were to us an advantage, because it makes it much easier for us and yourselves to spot new trends, because you don't have a lot invested in the status quo. And so that was the sort of interesting thing as I was listening to the talks this morning, thinking about it.
Yeah. Thank you, and agree. I would say I think it's an important topic that you're mentioning. If I ask you to move on a bit, I'm interested in Eavor as a company in a sense. Why do you think Eavor is trending within geothermal? What do you think it's special about just you?
I'll take your word for it. We're trending. I think there's a lot. Geothermal in general is trending as well right now, and some of the things that help are you solving some of the key problems. Geothermal itself is going well, but we've got a few attributes that make us particularly of interest for other people, and one of them is our dispatchability. Historically, geothermal has been a base load product, which itself is incredibly valuable. But especially as wind and solar take off with their more intermittent sources, you end up having a greater and greater need for dispatchable power. And the fact that we can be scalable, which, as people pointed out, is not underrated, scalable, clean, and dispatchable, that's absolutely critical, and has got the notice of a lot of people. For example, that's what finally turned Michael Liebert around and wanted to join us, was once he found that we were able to crack the dispatchability question.
Do you think that's going to be a breaking trend within geothermal?
One of the things is our dispatchability isn't something we invented. It's something that's inherent in design. I think you got to take, every time you pick a design, you're locking in certain advantages and disadvantages. Ours, if you think lithium is going to be a big thing, we have a disadvantage in that we're not mining lithium because it's not an inherent part of a design. But if you want dispatchable, we're the ones. The whole organizing principle of our company is ultimate clarity is the loop is the solution, the closed loop is the solution. And we haven't, we've kept that laser focused and just doubled down on that and focused on everything we can do possible to make that the winner. And you got to do that a bit. And it's not just spotting a trend, it's placing your bet and seeing it through to the end. As Vinod said in that quote you showed earlier, that's maybe going to increase the odds that maybe you might fail because you've got this singular vision. But if you do win, you can change everything. And that's, as he says, that's a worthwhile trade-off.
True that. I'm curious at what fuels all the innovation at Eavor?
Well, a bunch of smart people given the latitude to work on what they think is the most promising way forward, whether that be on the business development side or some of our geoscientists or some of our development engineers. It's just that, and it's also, to a certain extent, luck and this focus on the Eavor loop and closed loop. Because what we discovered is once we said, okay, the solution is a loop, how do we improve that? It just turned out there was a lot of unused white space around that idea. There was a lot of natural innovations that fell out of that. And we, I'd like to say there's a way to bottle that, but we're just lucky we started mining a particularly rich seam of innovation. And one innovation has this sort of cascaded into another. And it's a beautiful thing when you see that happen. But it's hard to plan You got to just be in the right place at the right time, and then to run like hell with it.
I'll quote you on that one. I think that was an excellent quote to do. I'm curious at listening to what trends and what trends are you watching, driving, and hoping for now?
Right. The interesting thing is, we talk about the different trends. I mean, the trends, we're less concerned about other trends in geothermal. What we're interested in is, we view the real competition for ourselves because of the dispatchability to be around the energy storage side. And the fact is, wind and solar are most likely to always remain the cheapest way to make a naked kilowatt hour of energy. But when it comes to being a dispatchable form of energy, we can definitely be cheaper and a better solution than a solar with a ton of batteries to achieve the same thing. So we're definitely following energy storage trends and everything else like that. And we're looking at how we can be complementary to wind and solar. Our long-term vision is that the future will be wind, solar, and a bunch of Everloop, and maybe a little bit of storage. So in that sense, we're competing more directly against not just batteries, but also gas peaker plants and things like that. I think within the geothermal area, where we have a common interest is in a number of things. One is just making sure, from a regulatory point of view, we're not forgotten between the lobbyists between big oil and big wind and solar, because they've got their own self-interest to look after, and so we've got to look after that. The other thing is where we all come together is we all have an interest in better drilling techniques you can go faster, deeper, hotter, cheaper. Whether you're traditional geothermal or EGS or closed loop, we all want that. And that's why we're definitely following drilling trends and drilling technologies and how we improve that. And that's part of our mix. And we're not keeping that completely closed to ourselves. In fact, later this week, we'll be demoing and trialing some of our new drilling solutions at the Forge site in Utah. The Department of Energy, because if we can win that one, that helps everyone collectively. So that's a good one. But for us, drilling, it's a little bit like Tesla took the trend with improving battery life, but they also decided to compete on batteries, not just building Teslas. We sort of take the same view. We can build Everloops, but we can also sell the sort of drilling technology that falls out of that.
Interesting, and actually, I know that you have some other interesting news, and I mean, many have claimed.
Yeah, it's no longer a secret.
It's no longer a secret. Can you just explain to us a little bit more about what this big announcement is that we are looking forward to?
Yeah, it's only a few hours old. I hope you appreciate we tried to time it with your webinar.
We are very appreciative of that. Definitely.
It just happened like that, actually, completely by chance. But one of the things we've seen is that to take things past our current stage, where we've sort of proven up the first iteration of technology, we're still working on more R&D. But what's really needed now for ourselves is to create commercial projects, to scale this up, to start innovating through implementation. And, we're a company of 30 people, 35 people? I can't keep track, but it's not a lot of people. Yet to make this technology scale, we're going to have to do projects around the world, dozens of them, each, hundreds of millions or billions of dollars each, if you're going to do this right. And we have neither the financial resources or the manpower to do that quickly, all on our own. If you want to take a long time, I guess anyone can do it, but we're in a hurry to change the world. And so there's lots of people can help us scale, but big oil is particularly well placed because not only do they bring the money and the motivation and the global operations and the project management abilities and the knowledge of the subsurface and how you mitigate those risks, those are ideal scaling partners, and it's sort of a match made in heaven. So we've been talking to a lot of oil companies over the last year. It was sort of an 8-month long dance. And we're happy to say that both Chevron and BP have invested as part of this $40 million US that just got closed this morning. or announced this morning in any event. And that's significant in that, in the last many years, there has been no oil major investment in geothermal, bar none. And one of the few players who was in before was Chevron, who sold for several $1 billion their existing geothermal operations back in 2017 when we were founded. And so to have knowledgeable people like BP, who've been one of the leaders in renewables, and someone like Chevron, who has a deep institutional knowledge of geothermal itself, to turn around and say, hey, we like what's happening in geothermal. It's finally looking scalable. We're in. And of course, it's not just the 40 million. That's nice to have, and that's going to go through to R&D and business development. But it's all the project finance that partners like that can help us bring along to finance these projects one at a time. So everyone said the pivot was going to start when oil and gas placed their bet and entered the fray. Well, it's happened. The geothermal decade has started. Let's hope.
I think that's an epic end of this conversation that we've had. This is a new beginning for geothermal. So thank you, John Redfern. I will have you back on stage a little bit later as well. But now we are moving into a break, so you can stretch your legs a little bit and make sure that you get a cup of coffee. And in meantime, you are going to get entertained by the band. You can look forward to hearing Vinod Khosla right after the break. Until then, see you later.
Across the meadow and over the mountains and down by the other hill, freedom still controls our will. And that was not at all our deal. I just had to run, or you have had me killed. We're not the same, though the blood in our veins shares the same old DNA. Oh, you fool, what did you do? Don't you know that I loved you? I just had to run, or I have killed you too. Now there is no time for us. No, there is no time for us. There just is no time for us. I guess the trees have always grown. I guess the leaves will always fall. I guess our fortune's been foretold within the deepest of our souls. You still think we're right? Consider this just one more time. You ever know the reasons I loved you? With the little things you do. Now there is no time for us. No, there is no time for us. There just is no time for us. Okay scenario, you listen to me one last time. Let it go. But what I believe is true. Never one more time. Don't let it go this way. That's all I have to say. By name makes the same for all involved. I don't know about you, but I live my life just as I'm told. Don't know how it starts and I don't know how it ends. Dead or alive, I guess that depends. You weren't strong enough to say. Bleeding heart and I can feel myself choked with the hope and dreams I hopefully won't end up broke. Felt the days and nights with my eyes fixed on the wall. Held my breath for an hour, just waiting for your number to call. But you weren't strong enough today. No, you were tired, but you woke up, you had a drink and that's too easy, just too easy. But in the end, it turned into an everyday repeat. Oh, you were tired, you woke up, you had a drink and that's too easy, just too easy. But in the end, it turned to an everyday repeat. And that's too bad. It's so, so sad. Swallow your pride and please do have a piece of my mind. I'm a reborn fool, still rolling like a stupid little child. We could have tried to be bigger than that, but we both know it will happen again. So we got lost on our way back, and now I'm erasing your name. You weren't strong enough to see. You weren't grand enough to be. No, you were tired when you woke up, you had a drink and that's too easy, just too easy. But in the end, you turn into an everyday repeat. Oh, you were tired when you woke up, you had a drink and that's too easy, just too easy. But in the end, it turned into an everyday repeat. And that's too bad. It's so, so sad.
Welcome back. I hope you had a good coffee and that you stretch your legs. Now it's time to introduce the self-proclaimed entrepreneurship zealot, grounded technology possibilist, and the believer of power of ideas. The investor, the entrepreneur, the technologist, Vinod Khosla, is the founder of Sun Microsystem and the founder of Khosla Ventures. He's also one of the founders of and board member of Breakthrough Energy Ventures. Today, he will inspire you by speaking on the topic that he has thought a lot about, and he has written a lot about it as well, the breakthroughs we need Please help me welcome Mr. Vinod Khosla.
Hello everyone today. My name is Hassan Motlog and I am Chief of Staff here at Khosla Ventures. Today, it is my great pleasure to introduce Vinod Khosla on his talk on the breakthroughs that we need. A quick intro on Vinod is that he is an entrepreneur, investor, and technology fan. He is founder of Khosla Ventures, which is focused on impactful technology investment. So Vinod, starting big picture, I really wanted to hear, and I think the audience would love to hear, about this piece you published almost 3 years ago called Reinventing Societal Infrastructure with Technology. So for context, can you tell us what this thesis of yours actually is at a high level and how it shapes the way you think about investing?
Well, after I turned 60, I decided I wanted to only work on interesting things and looked at what parts of global GDP one could innovate with technology in dramatic ways, not 20% improvement, but 200 to 1,000% improvement. Fundamentally, I view 700 million people on the planet having a rich lifestyle, rich in energy, rich in education, rich in healthcare, rich in transportation, etc., entertainment, etc. 7 billion people want it, and we need to do this without destroying the planet. And so resource efficiency has to go up dramatically by hundreds of percent. And that's what's interesting to me. And climate and energy are particularly interesting areas.
Well, Vinod, that is a great vision to have. And why is it entrepreneurs that reinvent society? Why not these big profitable corporations that are out there already?
Okay. Well, I've looked at the last 40 years that I've been in innovation and dealt with innovation in every area. And I can't find one single example of a large societally impactful innovation coming from an institution. Large private company, large public institution. Sure, R&D has come out of places, ideas have come out of places, but making them happen, one Elon Musk is more powerful than the few 100,000 people at Volkswagen, General Motors, and Ford combined in making electric cars happen. One person in Larry Page thinking and Sergey Brin thinking about driverless cars is way more impactful than anything Mercedes could do. In fact, 5 years ago, all of them would have said self-driving is more than 50 years away. They wouldn't even attempt it. And they weren't attempting it despite big numbers of software dollars they throw around. There is zero willingness to take risk, which is essential to make these large innovations happen. You know, it wasn't Walmart or Target that could change retailing, Amazon did. It wasn't Lockheed or Boeing or Airbus that innovated space. It was Rocket Lab and SpaceX. It wasn't General Motors or Volkswagen, but Waymo and Tesla that innovated cars. It wasn't CBS or Fox or NBC that innovated media. It was startups like Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and Netflix. So there's no example of large innovation. And hence it takes somebody who's willing to take the risks, believe in them religiously, and then through all the ups and downs, make it happen, which is what entrepreneurs do. And that's why we need entrepreneurs.
That's exciting, Vinod. It's great to hear you talk about this, but I want to get a little bit more specific. In the examples you've listed, it seems that energy and climate are, I would say, more the exceptions, are a little bit rarer in terms of reinvention. And I'd be very curious to hear what your thoughts are in terms of reinventing clean tech and energy and geothermal in general.
So just 6 months ago, I published a blog on climate technologies that are needed. And that to solve this problem, we need to address the dozen top categories of carbon emissions. And that only takes a dozen entrepreneurs. That's all it takes. Now, it takes a lot of luck for an entrepreneur, even if they're doing the right thing to succeed. But let's take some examples. Tesla has truly changed the worldview around driverless cars, or around electric cars. Waymo has changed the world's view, driven by the founders of Google around self-driving cars, which may reduce the need for cars by 10x because you can do public services instead of everybody owning their own 4,000 pounds of steel. QuantumScape, worth $18 billion or so, is the company that's radically changed the economics of electric car batteries. So I hope they can be cheaper to own than internal combustion engine cars. LanzaTech, not well known, not very closely followed, is completely innovating in cost-effective and highly scalable aviation fuels, because aviation needs a different solution than electric for long-haul flights. Short-haul, there may be other solutions. So, by the way, this is critical. There's plenty of aviation fuel solutions that are either too expensive or not scalable enough in terms of their feedstock. You need to solve both those problems. I can go on and on. In cement, Forterra is furthest along in zero carbon cement that actually costs less per ton than the full carbon cement, because the carbon dioxide captured increases the weight of the cement. So those are some examples. Energy, of course, is very, very important to both climate and to societal wellness. And that's where there's of course wind and power, and they're scaling, but unfortunately they're not dispatchable technologies. So what does it take to solve climate sensitive, low carbon energy technologies? I think there's three basic solutions, maybe four. One is large scale storage, like months at a time, at less cost than a penny per cycle, per kilowatt hour cycle. Now, and lots of good effort in energy. The second could be fusion. And we have some exciting fusion efforts. But the most important one, the simplest one, needs one or two technology breakthroughs, is in fact geothermal. I'm very, very bullish on geothermal. And I look at it the following way. Early 90s, when I talked to some people about deep sea drilling, if you drilled in 5,000 feet of water, it was considered miraculous. A decade later, drilling in 50,000 feet of water was considered, or deep sea drilling was considered routine. Now, the same transformation has to happen in geothermal. And when you approach geothermal, there's two approaches. One is make current geothermal reservoirs more efficient. And that's a good thing, it's okay. But it doesn't scale geothermal by 100-fold. And that's what we need. And to do that, there's one and only one technology needed, which is deep drilling. So just like in deep sea drilling, we extended the depth of water at which we can drill in geothermal, we need to mine heat at much deeper depths. Instead of going to 3 to 5 or 6 kilometers depth, which is typical today in geothermal, if we go to 15 to 20 kilometers depth, which is not a large scale up, then we will have limitless heat everywhere on the planet, or most places on the planet, with geothermal. And that would expand the market for geothermal 100-fold in my view. I'm using rough approximate numbers. My dream would be every coal plant in America get its heat mined right there where the coal plants exist, directly from deep thermal wells. And that's relatively possible on the western half and less a harder problem on the eastern half because heat is at deeper depths. But that's exciting. Now, there's one other caveat to it, just like in aviation fuels. We need to do this cost effectively. Today, when we drill deep, the cost per foot of drilling goes up exponentially as you go deeper. If we could make a linear cost of drilling as you go deeper, then we have a really, really exciting technology and one that can go. And so we do have efforts like Quays taking much larger risks to achieve much larger goals. And all the other geothermal efforts like Baseload, like Eavor, they're all good efforts. That's scaling today's geothermal reservoirs.
Thank you very much, Vinod. I think we're unfortunately at time, and I'm sure we could have filled another hour with hearing everything you wanted to talk about in terms of geothermal. It's always great to hear you describe inventing the future, and on behalf of everyone, really appreciate you making the time to share with us your thoughts on the subject matter.
Well, I urge all entrepreneurs in this audience to go after the larger vision, the more transformative vision than incremental visions of geothermal. But both are important. Thank you very much.
Well, that was an inspiring speech about the future. I think that you agree with me. On stage, I have Pernilla and John back again. I'm turning to you now to discuss a little bit about what we've heard here. Pernilla, if I start with you here, he obviously acknowledges Baseload is doing a good work, but he is also saying that he's more interested in deep drilling. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think he was quite clear himself, actually, in the beginning. I mean, he's put his time now on looking at innovations that have the possibility to have a real impact. He mentioned, 1,000 times more than just incremental development. And I think him using his platform and his mind to shed light on that very tricky area, it's great. I mean, we need both. So I think that's it's a great thing to focus on.
Definitely, John. Yeah, from what I understand, you and Vinod are a little bit of friends as well. Are you two arguing about the pros and cons of deep drilling, or how does the conversation go?
No, I wouldn't deem to say that we're friends. I've met him several times, and I'm well aware of his linear drilling cost goal. We share that one, so we don't disagree a lot. I think we mainly agree. The only difference is I don't view it as a chicken or fish sort of decision. It doesn't have to be closed loop or deep drilling. A closed loop, removing the reservoir itself, achieves a lot of scalability issues or resolves them. But we all know that go deeper, hotter, cheaper is going to be better. And just, for Vinod's sake, I would have to say that we're working on a drilling solution ourselves right now that has a higher rate of penetration the deeper you go, which holds out the promise for linear or less drilling cost increases with depths, which achieves Vinod's dream of coupling that with the exponential growth of power output as you go deeper. So it becomes not a question of whether geothermal is economic a certain spot, it's just how deep you have to go to make it economic.
Isn't this, if we just turn it around, I mean, this is an absolute possibility for the whole business to unite amongst that. It's not about one technique or one way of doing things, but we really have to unite about making geothermal trending as such. What are your thoughts about that? Let's start with John first.
Well, absolutely. The drilling side of things is something where we all have common interest. To better the drilling solution, whether we come up with it or someone else, there's lots of smart people, including Vinod, working on that problem. someone comes up with a better drilling solution, we'll adopt it as part of ours. And the thing goes forward like that. I think I used the analogy of if someone improves a battery, it doesn't make Tesla worse off. It makes Tesla and all the electric vehicle manufacturers all that more attractive. We're in that sort of virtuous cycle here.
Agree. Pernilla, what are your thoughts?
No, I mean, there's not really much to add. I think we're saying the same things. I mean, we as a community in geothermal need to look at all the different aspects, so we need to work together. It's not going to work with just one company or one person. We need to look at the combination.
Definitely. On that note, he speaks very much about entrepreneurs and that everybody that we need big people with a lot of passion to power through this. I know Vinod is a champion of breakthrough energy in a sense. How much does a champion like him mean for the geothermal industry? Pernilla, if you go first.
I mean, I think it's extremely inspiring, and just having him, attend here today and sort of use his voice to shed light on this important industry. I think it's both important and inspiring. And I know, I mean, for Baseload Capital and the investment done by Breakthrough Energy Ventures, it's really helped to sort of help us achieve our goals.
Yeah, thank you. Your thoughts, John?
I agree. We need more geothermally friendly visionaries like Vinod. Too many VCs, I think, have a very solar and wind-centric world vision, and we need people like Vinod to get them out of that, considering some of the broader possibilities like geothermal that has so much to offer.
Absolutely. Thank you, Pernilla and John, for helping me to comment on the speech from Vinod Khosla, and also thank you, Vinod, for being with us. From one champion to the other, in this industry, we have our next guest, Alexander Richter, who is definitely seen upon as a champion within the industry. He's the founder of Think Geoenergy and the managing director of the Iceland Renewable Energy Cluster. Alexander founded Think Geoenergy in 2008, I think, and has since been a major spokesperson for the industry. He is head of the Canadian Geothermal Energy Association and also a part of International Geothermal Association, and was actually the president between 2016 and 2020. Please help me welcome up on stage Mr. Alexander Richter. Hi there, Alexander.
Hi, Christina.
Welcome onto the show, or the screen, I should say.
Unfortunately, yes.
We hope for in the future that we can be sitting next to each other, but these are the circumstances, and we're so happy to have you with us here today. Now, we invited you much to talk a little bit about the topic of how to make sure geothermal is trending, and you and I have had really interesting discussions on these topics. If I turn to you as the first question and I ask you, what do you think are the key challenges facing the industry in order for us to be a trending industry amongst other renewable?
I guess in many ways it's about positioning ourselves in the overall energy transition discussion. And I think really fighting for the attention that we clearly deserve in these discussions is absolutely crucial. And we have to be careful that we do this in a way that we don't position ourselves in competition, but as a unique value proposition. And I think the key challenge is to really highlight and sharpen that profile in the representation and the promotion of geothermal.
Yeah, and how do we do this? Because I mean, a subject like geothermal, it is kind of abstract for people who don't know about it. How can we make sure that it's less abstract and to get more airtime?
I think the element like highlighting the attributes of geothermal, talking about that we are an energy source beyond electricity. So we provide so much more, that we are probably the most direct use of a heat resource. And in that context, we have unique attributes and we need to promote those. And we have to be really important to promote the global use of geothermal with the local opportunities presented and utilizing the different opportunities depending on the temperatures that we find in different markets. And actually with technology combined by our technology partners in the industry like Eavor and others is to highlight the opportunities presented with technology solutions beyond, let's say, the traditional areas of geothermal. So it's really the importance of highlighting the attributes, but also investing in marketing and promoting the not only the products and services we as an industry provide, but also the promotion of the category geothermal. Geothermal, basically our category geothermal, the attributes geothermal, what it provides to customers and off-takers for the general public, but also for industrial partners.
Mm-hmm. But let me tell you a bit about my story. I came into this industry about a year ago, and I remember as a new CMO at Baseload, I was trying to wrap myself around more about it. I knew a lot about the energy and the climate initiative and renewables, but trying to move into like Googling geothermal, it was very unattractive and boring to be honest. And it was not many companies that I was like drawn to market-wise. What do you say about that? Is that a problem for our industry?
I mean, one of the biggest credos in my professional life is that design is utterly important. It is design of how we present ourselves. So perception, the way we present ourselves is how we are being perceived, both within our industry, but also beyond. So if we are competing with other industries and they are doing a much better job in marketing and presenting themselves, the visual elements of that are quite important. And one of the elements that I've mentioned again and again is the notion of utilizing pictures, understanding more that we as an industry need images. We need materials, we need videos, we need to really promote the existing geothermal work that is being done. And for that, we need more pictures. We need that investment. So companies need to understand is that as part of their work, it's not only about promoting individual products and services, it's also promoting the industry and the category that we work in. Only if we manage to increase our market will we be as an industry successful. So it's utterly important. And in that sense is how do we become attractive to the off-takers, to the customers of geothermal? Industry, heat, for example, how do we promote this? Policy towards the politicians, baseload, for example. And on the customer side, on the consumer side, it's the emotional elements, feelings, emotions, and quite often this is connected with spas, for example, highlighting that fact. And I think that is both a blessing and a curse, as I guess baseload experiences in Japan. People can connect with the energy per se, but they connect it with bathing and they see the fear of geothermal doing something to that element. And I think it's really that balance that we need to find in promoting what we do, but do it in a way that really highlights. We're talking about the sexiness of what we work at, of our industry, but we need to highlight more the visual aspects of the industry and not just kind of like the drilling rigs, etc. We need to show the product and what it can do. And I think with that, we have a powerful message to tell, but we need to do better and we need to invest in that story and in that marketing, and both in content and design.
I really agree with you, and I think that you're basically putting your head on the topic. You're putting as we say in Sweden, you put the hammer on the spike, on the nail, I would say. If you would now summarize this, what would you say are the 3 key points that you would market to benefit the geothermal market even more?
So I guess one of the key elements is that we need to understand ourselves as an ecosystem. So the ecosystem consists of the subsurface, the geologist, the geochemist, the drilling company, the technology companies, the off-takers, but also all related elements, so finance, politics, marketing, business development, trendsetters, marketing, etc. So we need to understand is that we are not working in silos, that cooperation is key. So I think one of the key challenges is that global collaboration between the different players and understanding the value of each component of our industry is absolutely crucial.
And on that topic, Alex, Alex, I would really like to invite also Alexander Helling on stage here as well as you were speaking, because you and I were discussing before here, and we also have IGA with us, and we actually have a challenge for the industry, don't we?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, it's really that notion, how do we do and how do we engage with people? And we need to do this together and need to understand that we're all in the same boat. We're trying to promote our products, but first and foremost, we have to start explaining what geothermal is and what it can offer. And I think this is the crucial element. And I think we have to thank a lot of the pioneers in the geothermal industry. They realized that in order to sell their products, they needed to promote the category. And I think this is so utterly important to do. And part of that is really understanding that marketing promotion is as important as technology development.
Definitely. And on that mark, Alex, I know that we have a challenge for everybody who is listening in on this conversation. What is our challenge?
Well, our challenge is that we want to create a roundtable with people from the industry and discuss, how can we promote it in a better way and how can we work better together so that, we actually can show all the good things that we are doing.
Definitely. I know, Alex, this was, we were discussing it. It is an idea that came from you. We also have the IGA with us, and I'm sure that we have Eavor with us as well to call up to the round the table. So in our form afterwards, you will find up sign up for the round the table discussion. Make sure that you pick out one person from your company, and we at Baseload will make sure that to invite you and to start the discussions. And then what do you say, Alex? We will take it from there and see what we can do with some bit of marketing funds and also some creativity.
And let me stress one more point, is like we need to talk about what we're doing as an industry. We are creating too little content. We are talking too little about what we do, what we offer. So don't be shy. Talk about what you plan, talk about your projects, highlight what you do, take pictures and post them. So understand that each employee of you is a sales person, not only for your company, but also for the geothermal sector. So let's create that content to really be more present in the current energy transition discussions.
Definitely. And on that note, we are summarizing up here. Pernilla, join me on stage here as well. And Alex, please stick with us. Just for like the last summary and such, what do you take with you? What do you want other people, except for our call to action around the table, well, what more after listening in on this hour and a half would you like to say to the people listening in? Pernilla, if I start with you.
Okay. I really hope that everybody has been inspired and that we have managed to get the point across that we need to work together. It's not about, this or that. It's about and that is what I would like to leave them with.
Definitely.
No, and I would like to add speed also. I think that, as Alexander and many others pointed out, that geothermal been around for thousands of years, right? And we've been producing electricity for almost 100 years. But right now we need to speed up the development of geothermal, and we need to act now.
Alex, your final words.
Acting now and do this as fierce as we can. We have an opportunity now. Let's not lose the moment.
I think that there is not much more for me to add when having this really great people with me on stage. I heard do it now and make it together. And on that word, I would like to say thank you all for listening in on this. Thank you for making sure that you are a part of this geothermal revolution. We will be back. Stay tuned and make sure you sign up for our newsletter, because there you will find the next webinar that we will post with new exciting guests. So with that said, thank you all. Stay safe and see you soon. Bye.
in okay scenario. Listen to me one last time. Never thought we would end this way. Know what I believe is true. Whatever you might think we do, you never thought that we would end this way. That's all I have to say.
'Cause the future is now, not backing down. 'Cause the future is now.